I want to breathe like you. These streets are mine too. For far too long, the marginalised have had to pay the price of nepotism, classism and racism with their lives. We want to play ball, ride bikes, kick, flip and picnic without it leading towards the deterioration of our health. We have pride in our ends, pride in ourselves. But what's pride when your body is seen as collateral damage? What's pride when babies and children and elderly people cannot manage because their right to clean air has been taken? And don't be mistaken, when you leave your home to clear your mind because the air isn't fresh outside, go out there and the gases you inhale have death inside. I want to breathe like you. These streets are mine too. Often we think about the problems we can see, but what about the ones that we can't? The air we breathe, poisoned and polluted with CO2 from cars on busy roads, and tons more from burning waste way too close to homes. Don't I have a right to clean air, or am I only an heir to polluted roads by residential homes? I want to breathe like you. These streets are mine too. Rich businessmen not paying fines for breaking environmental laws, but it's the black and the poor that have to pay with their lives. When clean air is a luxury, death is the price for those who can't afford it. I want to breathe. I want to breathe. I want to breathe just like you. These streets are mine too.
Wow. Sega, can I ask you what that was?
Yeah, that was a Live and Breathe video, which was shot with community groups and members from Lambeth and Southwark. And the music was composed by composed by me actually, and recorded by Philharmonia Orchestra, who are based in Southwark. So at the other end of Lambeth and Southwark, we've got Royal Festival Hall in South Bank. And then we've got Jada David, who's part of Poetic Unity. And she came up with these wonderful words. So with the campaign, using art, music, poetry, activity to just highlight clean air.
Thank you. Before I even go into that, let me just welcome everybody today. Welcome to a very special podcast today, a podcast by IB Productions at Impact Brixton. So I just want to pay some just respect to some of the people that have made this happen. Firstly, Impact Brixton. Some of you might not know who Impact Brixton is. Impact Brixton is a community of creators, change makers and dreamers, and we provide programming, events, and co-working to businesses, freelancers, and people that care about their impact in this world. Today, we're in the Black Bar. You can see everything nearly in here is black. This place was sort of invented by Daryl, came up with by Daryl and his team. And they said this was the last space in here that we were gonna create. And they said, hey, we should make this space into an event space and dedicates this to the BLM movement. So it's called the Black Bar because of the issues that we were going through at that time. I want to thank Live and Breathe, who's made it possible for particularly by Impact on Urban Health, which is really designed to find equitable solutions that improve air quality and health for people living in urban cities. Impact on Urban Health is based in Lambeth and Southwark, and actually they're part of Guy's and St. Thomas's Foundation. So thank you. In addition to Impact on Urban Health, should I say, thank you to Aaron Parr, who reached out to me about a few months ago and said, hey, Gerald, how do we get communities like yours to really engage with some of the things that we're doing? And I suggested to him that, hey, what about a podcast? And I was like, he's never going to buy this, but thanks to you, Aaron, you've made this possible. And so I just wanted to thank you for bringing all of these people and myself and these companies together to make it happen. Aaron is the co-lead at Purpose, and Purpose co-lead at Live and Breathe, who is one of the organizations behind, Purpose is one of the organizations behind it. Welcome to the guest that has joined us from IB. Welcome to everyone in the room. Like I said before we started, please put your hands up and ask any questions after these guys have introduced themselves. I just want to introduce myself very quickly. I'm Gerald. Found me at Gerald Brixton. I've actually been thinking about changing my last name to Brixton, so I won't even mention what my last name is. I am the founder of Impact Brixton. I've talked about what Impact Brixton already does, and today I'm hoping to really pick your minds and talk to you about how the great work that you guys are doing to educate our communities on the importance of clean air. So the night really belongs to you, our very special host who's in here tonight. And I will start with Love Sega, who's a musician and host of Live and Breathe 2022. As you guys heard, he produced that musical that you heard before. Nick Rivet, who is the founder of Shabba Party, and you can find him at Shabba Party on LinkedIn. That's ShabbaParty. On Instagram, sorry, not LinkedIn. What am I thinking? LinkedIn, on Instagram. Thank you. And Sega is at Love Sega. Sega with SSEGA, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. And then, of course, last but definitely not least, Cece. And Cece is from Cece Roller Skates. She is running a skating collective based on Burgess Park, lives in Peckham, and is from Brixton. And these guys really care about the topic today. And we would love to sort of learn through your eyes and how you're engaging the community to have this conversation. So I want to start with you, Sega. Briefly, if you can start by just telling us a little bit about your background, right? And what makes you so passionate about clean air and why you've decided to dedicate a huge part of your life to really helping the world and our community solve this problem.
Yes, I'm a musician. I'm an artist and songwriter. Was mainly doing pop stuff beforehand. Then the pandemic came around, and I was socially aware. And even in my music, I try to touch on certain things, but not directly and not really overtly. So I don't know, maybe I was a bit too scared to, or didn't really see too much of the need to do so. But then in the pandemic, all shows, all touring, everything stopped. Like absolutely everything stopped. Most of the time I've done residencies abroad, I've toured abroad, and even though I grew up in Catford, just around the corner in Lewisham. So I grew up there, but my music and everything, I didn't really touch the local community with my art. Not that much really. So in the pandemic, I was stuck, and I think we were all stuck. We were all stuck in our little area, and we were told, don't venture too far, you're not allowed to do all of this. So then Julie's Bicycle and Arts Admin, two arts organizations, they said, oh, how about a commission? I was like, what's a commission? Because normally I write songs, perform, and that's it. Like, what's a commission? And they were like, okay, well, we'll pay you to use your music, or we'll pay any artist to use your music and then to try and tie it to an environmental campaign, because that's what they do. So they said, okay, look, we want to get more marginalized voices, underrepresented communities. We want to get you into the climate movement, which is quite middle class and white. So it's like, how can we do that? And what's the story which is pertinent to you? So for myself, I thought I'd heard about the story of Ella Kissy Deborah, who I think Cece's going to talk about a bit later. I'd heard about this young schoolgirl who grew up just off the South Circular, and 9 years old, she died because of air pollution. And I went to primary school just off the South Circular. So did Nick. Went to the same primary school, just off the South Circular. So it was like, that could have been, us. It could have been our little sister or niece or nephew or something. So that hit me, but she passed away in 2013. And it was only, 2015 that I heard about it, just because her mother, Rosamond, had been campaigning. So then when I had that story, I was thinking, environmentally, what affects people in my area? It's not really flooding. We've not really been flooded in this part. It's not drought or something, but then air pollution. Then more I read about it, and I was like, oh, this is a problem. So I thought, okay, let me use my voice from the Black community, talk about around the South Circular, and talk about air pollution. So I made this song, Our World Fight for Air. Didn't think, just like I made other songs, but then it kind of, kind of got traction. It got traction.
The song did, yeah?
The song, yeah, it got attention. And actually that's when Purpose came in, because they saw what I was doing. I made little zines because I was in a commission, my sub-commission, my cousin up in Edinburgh, to make little comic books to show young Black people in these stories, so people who would have been Ella's age, to say, okay, look, how can you see yourself in a climate story? I made that, and then Purpose saw that. They're like, that's interesting. Okay, let's help you with a video. And that's where Cece actually came in, because we went around the community in our little areas, because we're still in lockdown, and say, okay, look, how can we reach out to Black people, people of color? And the hook of Our World Fight for Air is, do we really care? Yeah. And then I went around the community, and then it's like, do you want to be in this video for air pollution? And they're like, yeah. They're like, okay, yeah, let's be in it. So again, made the music video, and then it just grew and grew and grew. And now, fast forward to where we are looking at Lambeth and Southwark, because it worked in Lewisham in the campaign that I did with purpose as well. We reached about 100,000 people. Lewisham is 300,000, so that's like a third of the borough. We had billboards, there's music video, there's some outreach. So then now with Lambeth and Southwark, with Live and Breathe, it was to do it even bigger, because that's now 600,000 people. And to say, okay, now we've got some awareness, how can we get the community more involved? So it's like, CC, okay, yeah, before, okay, you involved in the video, okay, what more can we kind of do? Now we've made some connections, what can we do? And even when you look at this, what more can we do? So that's the sort of journey, which is, well, there's still other parts of the journey too, but just to say where it was something I wasn't necessarily that aware of 2.5 years ago. So again, it's not like I was campaigning for Greenpeace like when I was 5. So, and I think that's the main thing. We don't need to be the experts. There are people doing the research. We don't need to do all these other things. But then when you see these things, and it's like, what can you do? As a musician, artist, I got a platform. That's what I do. So that's how I got here.
Amazing. Thank you. And well done. Yeah, so I was going to go to you, but I think the story of Ella Kissy, is it Ella Kissy Deborah, right?
Say her name, Ella
Kissy
Deborah. Her full name is Ella Adu Kissy Deborah.
Kissy Deborah. Yeah. Cool. I mean, this story clearly is what connects you both, right? And connects you both to clean air. It looks like it's the spark, right? And it takes us to see someone directly suffer from clean air, right? For it to inspire this level of action. So I'd love to hear from you, CC, how maybe touch to that story, but what is your background? What has inspired you to do this work?
Hi, everyone. Well, I'm actually a resident of Southwark, but I lived in Lambeth for about 10 years. And I'm a mother, and I'm a lover, and I'm a lover of roller skating. So I'm what you would call a Corona roller.
Okay.
So when
Corona
lockdown happened,
is that a thing? Okay.
Well, that's what they call us, because back in lockdown 2020, it was like the 80s kids came back. I'm an 80s kid. And Boris said, go out and have unlimited exercise. And I just so happened to have a pair of roller skates. So I said, all right, But funny enough, my local park is Burgess Park, and I hadn't been there for 8 years. I was caught up in that whole trap, working, and that just seemed to be my main focus and raise my daughter. We ventured out with face masks on, like we were like landing on the moon, like, is everybody out here? Is everyone alive? And when I went out into Burgess Park, there were so many people having picnics, roller skating, skateboarding. I'm like, but it's lockdown, it's pandemic, what's going on? Everybody was so happy. So I started roller skating, and I discovered Instagram, and I started to document my journey, like day one of roller skating and so on. And I was contacted by Tracy, who is a filmographer, and she was working with Love Sasega and the team. And she contacted me, seeing how our vibe roller skating, myself and my partner and my daughter. And she said, would you like to feature in a video about air pollution? But I literally had no idea. Serious. I feel actually so guilty that I live in the South Circular as a mother, knowing that a little black girl, 9 years old, died from air pollution just down the road from me. And I had no idea. I didn't even know that I was someone who was from a marginalized community that is affected by this silent killer. I had no idea. So when I listened to Love Sasega, I call him Sasega. He's allowed me to call him that because of the double S's in his name. But when I listened to his track, it was really unusual to me. It was really like melancholy and quite disturbing, like the lyrics. So that's when I really got my first education about air pollution and who Ella was. And it really touched my heart. It was so heartbreaking that Ella is the first known death from air pollution in the United Kingdom. And she died aged 9. That girl. Is so...
A young black girl.
Yeah. Because of air pollution. And it's been 9 months since the coroner has basically confirmed that is her true cause of death, and the government haven't done anything. So I'm standing with this. I feel really connected to her story. and we are all affected. And yeah, I'm passionate to the whole of to this cause, because I feel that I just feel that we're forgotten. I feel like the government don't care, so we have to care. Yeah.
Thank you.
And
And
actually, so on that point, because that's interesting, it's great to jump to CC next. So Tracy Chiango was the director of that first video, Our World. And
Yeah.
it just so happened when we were looking for directors, then we looked out, and then again in my art, just normally in most of my projects, I try and put Black people behind the camera and in front of the camera. So that's why I try and do Black artists, Black people, and then people of color, and then try and put women as well to get a balance in the thing. So we're really excited to get a female director, and she was from Lewisham, and her family's from Uganda as well, as it so happens. But that's another sort of way where you think, okay, how do people get involved in this? So Tracy, she was an amazing videographer, and she'd shot amazing stuff. Then she came along, and she, with a lot of the groups that were trying to reach out to, similarly, she was stuck with her camera. And then she was like, okay, now I've got to see visit the newsagent, just like everybody else. Like, you had to go and see your local community. And she built up all these different contacts in the local community. But you can see it's just through, it's art. It's art because I had music, she makes the video, but then it was community, then how she went to CC. So it's all of these different things, and it was just fantastic where you've got Black people doing different things, in terms of making music, making disturbing music. And that was the vibe. That was the thing. It was meant
we
to be
need to
that.
play this. Like, I feel like, everybody wants to hear
Yeah,
this.
so there's that. And then Tracy, again, documentary maker, filmmaker as well, making films.
Full name? Tracy
Chiango. Yeah.
Ugandan.
Yeah. And then getting the message to Cece. So, and then her being part of it, and then seeing the different connections as well.
All self-circular connections as well.
Yeah.
Wow. Super inspiring, and I think it's so touching to hear that story, and amazing as well that what brought you there is the passion to be outside, right?
Yeah.
And to do something outside, right? And especially in a moment when we were worried most about air, right?
Exactly.
Because of COVID, and this has allowed us to think about this even more. Coming to you, Nick. Please, just tell us a little bit about your work. I know you've been involved in Live and Breathe quite a bit as well. So just introduce yourself.
Okay, hi, I'm Nick Rivet, and I'm a local events organizer. I do a lot of events around the Brixton area. I kind of got brought into this project to help bring together Live and Breathe as an event. I've known Sega for a long time, so his music was what first kind of brought the topic of air pollution and sort of a deeper awareness of the impact and whatever else to me personally. My events, they aren't usually as socially impact driven. I'll do just music events. Locally, the best known ones tend to be around sort of Caribbean music and stuff like that. So a lot of the communities that tend to be affected by these sort of issues come to my events, but they don't engage as much with different social issues. This event was a good opportunity to kind of firsthand get involved, work with communities.
This is Live and Breathe 2022,
Breathe
right?
2022.
Do you guys want to speak to that a little bit more? Someone paint us a picture of what that event is and what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, so Live and Breathe with the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So before the previous thing, Fight for Air, that was like a song and a video. It was just awareness in Lewisham. But then coming to Lambeth and Southwark, what we really wanted to do is to engage. Like for myself, okay, I did the whole first thing. That's my perspective of Lewisham. I didn't want to come to Lambeth and Southwark, even though it's not that far. And then tell the story of Lambeth and Southwark. Yeah, it was successful over there in Lewisham. So it was important to say, okay, fine, I'll get this amazing orchestra, which is in South Bank Centre, to make the music. But then I wanted the voices to come from Lambeth and Southwark. So that's the thing. So it's like, okay, use some of that momentum to then provide that platform. And then also, it's a thing where it should be everywhere. It should be in the arts. It should be in sport. It should be in wherever it is. Just because, as Cece said, the politicians aren't doing it. And we can't wait for the politicians. Especially this particular government, we can't wait for them, really. so it's like, okay, how do we provide a platform to then bring other people in who maybe haven't have done it before? And the coming back to with Nick is to reach out with Nick is we forget what community building is and the thing. So Nick's nights are he's very humble, but they're very successful and it's quite broad. And whether it's coming from the West Indian music thing, but also with a disco, you know, having set up Brixton Disco Festival. So you know, it's bringing people together, and it's all these strengths that we have, but because it's seen as black entertainment, but when it's changing of the guard and the proms, that's seen as some big old fancy thing over there. You know, that they got the bells and whistles and everything else. But it's like, actually, we've got the community here. Yeah. If we've got the awareness, then it's just trying to bring that together. So, and we had the workshop here, the first workshop, so to see what the community wanted. You know, because it's one thing saying, okay, let's have a campaign and whatever. But it's like, okay, how do we get different people in? So we had Solomon from Brixton Soup Kitchen come down and loads of different people come down. CC was there as well, and say, okay, how, if we're going to present this to you, what would you like to see? What are the things that how you'd like to get the word out and awareness? So, and one of the things was an event where they're like, okay, we want an event. So then it was like trying to figure out how best to have an event to bring people together. Now, in terms of the outreach, we were going, like I said, it wanted to bring in different people. So I thought about it and I was like, in Lambeth and Southwark, what's more exciting than Lewisham is you've got such powerful places like Brixton, Peckham, South Bank, you know, you've got such amazing, and I did a little map, and between here and South Bank is 4 miles. So you got Brixton, you got here, you go past the academy, you got a little skate park there. Then you got Elephant and Castle, the Latin American community that's there in Elephant and Castle. Then you got like Imperial War Museum randomly. Then you got the old Vic and the Cut and all the theatres. Then you got South Bank, BFI, the cinema, every IMAX, all of that in one area. But a lot of people here might not pull these things together because you'll just stay in your area. I'm Brixton Hill, I'm Loughborough Junction. As if it's like France and Spain, like, you know? Yeah. So, and I can understand why there's different like postcode pride and stuff like that. But then with music and art, you can kind of pull it together.
So how are you bringing all those communities
together?
But also postcode pride doesn't exist with air pollution.
Well, there we go.
I mean, it doesn't.
Well, there you go.
We're all affected.
Exactly.
Especially in the South Circular, which is one of the busiest roads in our city, London, you know?
So just coming back to you, Nick. So it sounds like what Sega's saying is you being an event organizer, particularly around culture that the minority cares about, allows you to bring the people together for us to have the conversations around some of these topics that maybe none of us get to hear about, right? And now we get to hear about it within the context of our own culture and communication, right? And so speak to me about how Shabba Party is doing that, and is that every event? Is that am I going to come to every event? And
okay, so I mean, this was pretty much like a one-off commission, and so it was a real educational moment for me where I got to learn a lot more, some of my own general health anxieties and stuff in terms of air pollution helps cause like more cancers, just seeing the raw stats about how many people die. I mean, I find as a resident in like just in London and having lived in some of these different communities, you see there's a big sort of migration in the holiday periods where everyone who lives in the home counties and stuff, and they've got a place in London, they leave when it comes to Christmas and stuff like that, but they've got family homes with much cleaner air and stuff like that. And so I kind of felt a responsibility to partake, thanks to purpose, in this project, and just to kind of see if I could connect certain artists whose music or sound related to the subject matter, if we could reach more people through their music. And then also through that, I got to work with people like CC and different community groups that also participated in the event.
You guys want to say something? Thank you.
Cheers.
Before I jump into my questions.
Yeah, I think it's just it's the framing of how, like, we listen to the songs and it was great. Like, for instance, one the Shumba Youth is someone who Nick made sure to come to the event. and perform. And then when you see Shumba Youth performing in that setting, and then you just think, wait, hold on, there's a lot of consciousness was already there in Jamaican music. There's a whole heritage behind that. It's already there. And it's the same thing, actually, if you listen to hip hop, because I loved 90s hip hop. When you start listening to like Dead Prez, De La Soul, when you start Erykah Badu,
Marvin Gaye was singing about
precisely.
Right, clean air.
Exactly. So when you look at it, it's like people were talking about these issues, you know. So it's a thing where we already have it in the community. So sometimes it's already there. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes you just need to move it from here, to
change
here.
the context of how people receive it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, cool, awesome. So my first question actually, and this, when I first spoke to Aaron about this event, I was like, every time I hear about clean air, it's sort of like, and I'm just gonna play the typical urban black man who just feels like I have a fight for all sorts of other things but this, right?
Yeah.
I have a fight for poverty. I have a fight for my community to have equality. We have a fight on racism. We have a fight on, like, we have so many.
Never ending.
It's a never ending, right? All the sustainable development goals is an issue with black communities globally and wherever you look, right? So it just feels like our energy, how do we think about where our energy goes? And then I was thinking about, okay, so do I really care about clean air? Like, genuinely, do I care about clean air? So, and I was thinking about this, and I started, before I did this podcast, I listened to a few podcasts, and I started reading. I was like, wow, like, I didn't know about any of this. I knew about some of it, but I knew enough to have cared. So why is it that I'm doing nothing about it, right? Why is that? Like, I mean, I saw some of the stats with what Aaron shared today. Over 30,000 people in the UK, 4,000 people dying in London. I read somewhere 70 million people globally dying. You've just told me someone specifically has died from this, right? A young black 9-year-old girl has died from this. And I've heard about this, but I'm like, do I care about this? And then we put this event out, and I was like, man, I wonder who's going to come. Real talk, like, nobody signed up for this without us actually reaching out until maybe 4 or 5 days to go, and then we saw natural people signing up. But if I put a party, if I put something else, like, people will sign up. Why is it that we don't, as a community particularly, why is it that we don't care about something, or we seem as though we don't care about something this important?
I think that if people, well, let's not say people, if local authority or central government don't care and they don't share, then we don't believe that there's going to be any change. For example, Southwark Council, when we had the We Live and Breathe event, you know, you go on social media, they have a social media account, and I tagged them. I tagged Lambeth and I tagged Southwark Council, and they didn't respond. And I kept checking their updates. They just posted 2 days ago, Armed Forces. Let's celebrate the Armed Forces. They've shared the Jubilee. They've shared Pride Month. Why couldn't they share a free event for all residents of Southwark Council? Of Southwark. Why couldn't they share that? It's a free event. Why wouldn't they share that? They don't care. So if they don't care, they're not going to make changes. They're the ones that we are reaching out to make change. But if they don't want to make change, then why is the average person thinking, well, why should we do anything? What's the point? Why are you guys shouting and screaming about this?
So this is my point. There are certain people, it's quite fortunate to be a musician and to be an artist and to have the time to do this. That's quite fortunate. I decided what type of career. I could have had an easier career, put it this way. I could have had a much easier career, you know. But that's sort of
and making music.
No. Even within the music industry,
okay.
Just because when you look at the major label music thing, you know, I can just go and sing some songs that a random person's written and actually copy a '90s hit written by a black woman and then just sing it up a thing. And you know, just listen to the radio. Put it that way.
Right.
Listen to the radio. So I could have just been doing that, some tap dancing. But then for me, I feel like I've got the energy, and the whole point is, other people should just be doing their lives. It shouldn't be down to other people. People should be just going to work, looking after their families. That's what they should be doing. So it shouldn't be burden on people to then say, now we're campaigning for clean air. That shouldn't be the case. And that's the way we need to, when you flip the script and it's like, look, you don't really care. And it's like, well, if you gave me the time, you know, I'm sure if Cece was getting like some of these PPE contracts for millions and millions that the government were dishing out, then maybe she'd be doing clean air full time. But, you know, if they've not got the time to do that, then other people like myself who's in a position where it's like, look, I have a platform, I have some time, then I'll go and make noise. And then that's why when you look at Live and Breathe, it's sort of, if you can create something artistically where people can have minimum, like, okay, if you just say, oh, can you sign an open letter and then maybe come to a free event and then lend your skills.
Something easy that we can all do, right?
Exactly.
And get paid for the time that you're doing to try and do this. So then you can tap in, just because people in Brixton, in Lambeth and Southwark don't have the time to be doing petitions, going to the town hall meetings, doing this other thing which other people have classed as activism. To be an activist, you have to sign this position, you have to do these town hall, village hall, church hall meetings at 3 p.m. when other people over here have got to go to pick up their kids, go to work and everything else. But the trick is, if there are people like, well, what I'm trying to do anyway is to make the space and to make it easy from our community saying, how do you want to do this?
Right.
You know, so that's the point. So then if you can make the noise and then you have the event, then it's like, look, if just for one day from the community, come in and then show your skills, show whatever. And then the artists, all the people like Impact Brixton, you got a platform as well. Yep. So we can do that and then to show people, look at this music video. You said black people of color don't care about air pollution.
There you go.
Look at the music video.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know, when you introduce yourself, one of the things that I heard from all of you was the fact that without you creating that first video, you wouldn't have had that opportunity. Without you going out and roller skating and creating content whilst you were roller skating, that wouldn't have happened, right? And it's the same. Without you creating these events, this wouldn't have happened. And I think for me, the common thing, and we talk about creator economy all the time, people that are going out there and not just consuming or complaining, but actually doing something about it. And often the creators end up with the platform, and then you end up with the responsibility to use that platform, right? And I guess I had never thought about what your response to my question is. No, we don't need everyone to care. We just need the right people that can make a difference to care, and everybody else will join the movement.
And share the knowledge.
And share the knowledge. Thank you. Okay, I didn't expect a good answer from that, but yes. Okay.
I'm tried and tested.
Okay, clearly. Okay, Nick, do you want to add anything to that? I feel like that was a good response.
I think it was a pretty good response. Pretty covered it.
Cool. So I have some specific questions for you guys. So I think you've covered it, a lot of this actually, Nick, but I wanted to talk to you about the 500 people that gathered last week for Clean Air Day and Live and Breathe. Just, I still feel like for most of us here, it's not clear what that was as a day, right? Like maybe just walk us through what happened. Is it happening again? Sure. Like what is it, right?
So I think the event was subtitled as Come Together to Make Some Noise for our communities and the activities we love to do or whatever. And so my understanding of that was just there's loads of people from skaters, BMXers, poets, rappers, whatever, and they're all in this borough inhaling unclean air and stuff. And so it was just a simple way of getting them to do whatever it is that they already love and sort of their passion, to do it in one shared space, and to make noise, make some awareness about something that affects them ultimately. And so for me, it was just a really interesting exercise, from getting people to put posters up in the local cafes and stuff like that. Because when you're explaining it to that local cafe owner, they're like, oh, wow, this is what I'm living. Definitely, we're happy for you to put this poster up. So I think first and foremost, it was just an educational process. But then beyond that, it was to get everyone in those communities to kind of connect with their fellow skaters, bikers, and then for the musicians to reach out to their fan bases and stuff. So I think for the first event, the 500 plus people that came across the day, it was just a really nice day, educational moment, good vibes. And hopefully something can come and continue. But I guess that's kind of with the funders and stuff. But yeah, there's definitely like a seed was planted, I described it as.
Cool. Sounds fun.
Yeah.
It was,
yeah.
It's a wild idea when you think about it. And if we just go backwards and it's just like, okay, air pollution, and you're going to get people to do stuff.
Yep.
It's mad.
Not
Like,
happening.
it's genuinely mad. Like, even though I enjoy writing songs, who could have thought that it would resonate with somebody else within the borough and within your own community and stuff like that? And the thing, first off, you can scare people with these statistics and there's an eco anxiety where everyone's worried about, and rightly so, temperature rising, all these other different things, and changing climate. Or you can then try and spin it and say, okay, look, you can get awareness, but then we're not trying to scare people. Yeah. What we're trying to do is, why are we bothering with this air pollution? Right. And the point is, I think it was like 13th of January, something went out from the government, well, from the news, and they said, don't go and run outside, don't do exercise outside because pollution is very, very high.
Yeah.
And you check back in the news and it was like really high that day. Mm-hmm. So then that's a sort of like a trigger point where it's like,
This
okay,
is post-COVID. Or
this is post. This is this year, 2022.
Wow.
So
this is in London.
This is in London, yeah. So it's the sort of thing where it's like, look, that's this year. So it's not like a future thing. What we want to do is we want better conditions, so that we can do the things that we live, and we want to live by going skating, going to the park, playing football like the Peace Ballers from Peckham. We want to do all of this stuff and have a better life. We don't want to be lagging behind. We don't want to be losing like life expectancy. We want to, walk down for the bus and not be out of breath. So it's the spin to say, look, if we solve this, or if we can improve this, then it makes the quality of life much better. That's what we want to be doing. Because ultimately, we want to be in the park, like, having a good time.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why we're sort of doing it. So it's framing it like that. And a subliminal thing is, I just think, again, like when you show people what's going on, and you can tackle, this is where like race and environment intersects. It's another thing where it's like, look at what black people are doing. Like, black people are roller skating, winning silver medal, like Kai White, his dad, Nigel White, is in that video. So that's an Olympic silver medalist from Tokyo, Peckham BMX, where they're making Olympians out of our young boys and girls right here in Burgess Park. So it's like, look at what's going on in the area. Look at the fun, exciting stuff which is happening.
But protect us too, because we've got to do all this outside.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, when you say that, like, one of the things that comes to mind is clean air seems so abstract, right? Like, it's so abstract. When I think about it, I think about, okay, poverty is very clear. If I'm hungry, I can see, I know what I need. When I eat food, I get satisfaction from it instantly, right? But air, I don't think about. Even though I'm breathing every second, I don't think about it, right? And I take it for granted. And so, so I just want to come back to the point of minorities, particularly communities in Lambeth and Southwark. And you talk a lot, I've heard you talk a lot about the connection between environmentalism and racism, right? Or race, right?
Yeah.
So, like, why is how is this connected? Like, I'm dumbfounded.
It's quite easy to, well, there are two things. First off, it was strange even for me to kind of visual, like, how much can you like put in a song about air pollution? So how much mileage is there? Like, it's tough. So, but then you look at it, and one big thing which brought it home was COVID pandemic. So for a number of reasons, and the reason why the COVID pandemic came about is when you look at people of color and people socio-economically who are in the worst positions, they were dying the most. So it's the sort of thing where air pollution, we weren't really taking it seriously or really paying attention. I mean, even myself, But then when you look at it, and then you've got this respiratory disease which comes along, and now we're all the same. We've got grandparents, we've got parents, we've got, all these different people. And then we're thinking, hold on a minute. There's one society, just because they've got all the buses they've got all the trucks, lorries, and all the diesel cars and everything else driving around. Before we even get to pandemic, they're the ones whose lungs have been destroyed. Then what chance do they have? What chance do they have then when COVID comes? And then this thing rumbles on after 1 year, 6 months, whatever. Then you can see, like, having healthy lungs, it makes a difference. Because now if we're in a society where, quite frankly, government, the way they were acting and the way different places were acting, they're not going to protect us from the pandemic because they're lining their pockets rather than protecting the people. So then it's like, wait, we've got to then take it into our own hands and then make sure that we're not starting 2 steps behind. So that's like, that's one reason why it's important. Then the second thing is then when you start looking at it. So my first thing was based around the South Circular. And then you got to ask yourself, again, it comes back to COVID, where people did want to stretch their legs and go outside. But then the green space, not everyone has a garden or the space to do that. Right. That's down to how much money you have, you know? And then you got to think, where do people live? You know? So it's like, oh, you live here. Oh, okay, you live on this road, South Circular, or you live on Old Kent Road. Yeah. Why do all this busy traffic, all these lorries, why they go right outside your front house? Right. Do you control that? You know? If I was going to Catford, the quickest way would be through where? Not the road, not the South Circular, then come to Towles Hill. Quickest way would be through Dulwich Village.
But you don't go through there.
The buses don't go, the traffic doesn't go through Dulwich Village, does it? So then you got to look at it and then you've got to ask, hey, what's going on here? Yeah. You know, what is going on? You know, so you start to look at it and then you say, okay, look, why are these people put here? You look at Elephant and Castle and you look at all that traffic. It's a mess around Elephant and Castle. You look at those two big estates, which they flattened. Wasn't it Europe's biggest estate? They flattened. Now they're calling it Elephant Park, and now they're trying to reduce the number of cars. And it's like, so now, you know, where you had the Bangladeshi community there, and then in Rockingham, and then you had the Haygate estate, and then you didn't do anything about the transport. You did nothing. Now you've got these plush £500,000 one-bedroom flats and whatever. It's like, oh, now you're changing the system. Yeah. So that's when you look at it, and it's like, wait, so it can be done. It can be changed. There is something about it. So that's when you start to unpick it, and it then becomes a deeper and deeper thing where it's not about stopping. It's bigger than these stupid squabbles about who's driving the car. So when I go into school, the one thing when you're speaking to young kids is you don't want to say, it's really bad. You don't want to add the eco-anxiety there. So you just ask them, look, what are the things we can do to make the air clean and what can make it dirty? Then you don't want them to argue amongst themselves, because that's what we do as adults. So you don't want to say, oh, look, okay, well, let's try not drive cars and whatever. And then you make this person feel bad because, oh, your parent has a diesel car and then this person doesn't have a car. And this. You don't want that. And it's not about that, because diesel cars, we should be getting rid of them, but the government had subsidies for diesel cars. So they were telling the population, buy diesel cars. So it's not the people's fault. So, but what you want to do is then say, okay, look, if you can try and make it easier for everyone, yes, for the people, if you want to drive your car, good luck with the petrol prices now. So if you want to drive your car, all right. But then if you make public transport, mass transport, which clearly is better, if you make that free, it used to be free for under 16s. Now it's just free for under 11. If you made it free for a lot of people, then you've got the option. Okay, you want to drive your car over there, but here, this is something which makes sense. And then you start to look at it and it's like, look, why are our buses the ones which are being changed and cut down and everything like that? And for the people who don't have time to protest, they're working free jobs. But then if they have to catch free buses and the buses are being stopped, then you start to see how all of this interconnects. So that's why there's a link. And then that's why we got to think hard, because the people putting these barriers in, they're thinking hard about it.
Right.
You know?
Thank you. Yeah. Some eye-opening, thoughts on how the system works and why we. So when you talk about that, one last question before I put this to anyone that wants to ask. I guess you speak to the government, the local government, central governments, perhaps not prioritizing this, right? Especially for minority communities. Is it because there isn't activism from our community to challenge some of the things that is happening? And is that why we need to be to do what we're doing here, right? Because you're like that Elephant Park you're talking about is going to have a middle class movement, groups of people that buy the property that are going to complain when trucks are driving on their road at 5 a.m. in the morning, right? And they're going to self-organize and make sure that, hey, the local government is changing the rules around this, right? Even Brixton, I don't know how much you guys know about Brixton, but we're creating all of these green zones and these no-car zones, but a lot of our community do not want this, right? Because of change and maybe a lack of education around the impact that clean air is having, right? I have team members here that have kids that they drop to school that they just think, why are you stopping me from driving to the market, right? And is that why this is it, or is it both? Maybe it's both,
it's
right?
a lot. There's not enough activism.
Right.
there's not a lot of education. There isn't enough information being shared in school communities. There isn't chatter amongst neighbours, chatter at the bus stop. There isn't anything being shared on WhatsApp between families. And that's what needs to happen. And we do need to be scared because we're living in toxicity. And the government know exactly what to do, because one of the countries that has the most cleanest airs, one of the cleanest cities, I think is Switzerland. What's the? Is it Zurich? What's the?
Geneva?
No. Okay. Well, let me just say Switzerland
okay.
is one of the countries, and Australia has got the cleanest. Has the cleanest air. Sorry, and the reason why they have the cleanest air is because they follow the WHO guidelines. That's the World Health Organization. So the UK know exactly what to do. They know exactly what to follow. They know how to lower the levels. It's already been done. The scientists have already done their research. They need to just get on with it. They need to, the same way that Southwark and Lambeth can text us to tell us that we've late paying our council tax. They can, go to the nearest site to get your vaccine or whatever. They can do exactly the same.
Right.
They can alert us and tell us about air pollution levels. You've got the Met Office and London Air. Is it London Air Network?
Yeah.
They do forecasts every day. You can go on there, put your postcode in, and it can tell you that the pollution's high. But that's all they do. They just do the smiley face or a sad face. Today's not really a good day to go and have a picnic. Okay, but what else can we do? For example, air pollution is not just about outside. When we were in lockdown, everyone's spraying Glade and diffusers and air fresheners and using too much cleaning products. So the education is not just about the air outside, it's also about inside. We spend
Inside
90% of our time at home.
Wood heaters.
Yeah.
Wood burners. So.
Wood burners,
Cooking
yeah.
too much, There's so much things that we can decrease at home. But if you don't have the education, if there's no chitter-chatter, if their social media accounts, the local authorities' social media accounts aren't ablaze with giving us information, then how are we going to learn? How are we going to protect ourselves?
Thank you. And it was Luxembourg, if anyone wants to move there,
Okay,
by the way. I just Googled it quickly.
Thank you. Sorry.
What do you guys think? You guys have been very quiet. No choice. What do you guys think? So I guess what I'd really love to hear is really about the care, right? Like, do we care? Do we actually care about clean air, and what can we do to care? Or any other questions?
I can start.
Go on. Switch
Did
the
we
mic
test
on.
this? It's on.
It's on. Oh, turn it up.
Turn it up.
On the what?
Testing.
Yep, you're good.
You can hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So before anyone else speaks, I'll start. So I think the amount that I knew about this is probably the same amount a lot of people in this room. So I'm aware. I know that the world's going to crap, and I know that we're involved in it, and it makes sense. It's very unnatural, a lot of the things that we do in the world right now. So it makes sense for it to happen. But my education wasn't. There's like you talked about earlier, and Gerald asked, that was one of the main things I was going to ask, and I'm glad that you did, is that there's so much for us as a community to worry about, and air is a silent killer, but I feel like that's more scary because we can prepare ourselves for the obvious killers as we step out of our house and be more vigilant, you know what I mean? Yeah. But the silent killer is, but you don't know how it's killing you when it's killing you. So I think if anything, I was going to say that maybe from what you said, what I took away from it, which is kind of a question, is that do you think there's an agenda for us to not know, and there's an agenda for us to, because if you think about it, the city needs to function in this way to reach the targets they're reaching and surpass it. So it's like, even when you were talking about the routes, it's specifically done in that kind of way. So do you think it's more of the fact that we've got so many issues to worry about, and this isn't one that we've shouted about enough, so it's easier for the government to kind of hide? Yeah. Did that make sense?
Yes, it did. Yeah, I agree with you.
That makes sense. Also, just as my general philosophy or my thinking on this is, politicians follow; they don't lead. They look where the wind is going, and then they follow the votes. Also, they're gonna be here for 5 years, maybe 10 years or something like that, and then they'll be gone. So that's why, to be honest, I don't put too much fire on the politicians, because they'll do what they need to do. There are some politicians who aren't like that, but they'll do what they need to do and then just bounce, you know? So, and like with all this stuff, it's not about it's not about hero worship, you know? It's not about saying, oh, this is the one person who's gonna save me, or this is the one person who's gonna do this. But if we look at air pollution, it won't be an issue until it's an issue. And unfortunately, in this system, it's like with capitalism, when you're talking about the Met Office and stuff, well, guess what's happening now? Rightmove.com, or the letting agent, well, the estate agent thing online, they're looking to start putting the air pollution level on the houses, on the house listings. Because as Nick was saying, some people who are from the home counties and they want to come to these areas for the vibes, then they're realizing, wait, hold on, Dalston and Brixton, or these different areas, they're like, it doesn't smell too fresh around here. Yep, I can be trendy and I can cycle on my bike, but you know, you're living in Clapham and whatever, and you're cycling through these polluted, mad streets. You know, it's not a country lane. So they're like, wait, why am I paying 800,000, 1 million to be like almost living in this furnace? So now they're going to tell the house people, we want to know before we move there, because there are loads of things which you didn't tell us about,
right?
You know? So it's going to happen, but then that's a slow thing. But then what about for the people who are still here? And I think of course there's a thing where people don't want to be educated about stuff. So that goes across, the board, but it can be a different way. It genuinely can be a different way. And I just think Britain, we're just in some days. I do think it comes down to education, but there's so many things we're not educated about. So air pollution, which we can't see, most of us we can't see, and it's not too much of a problem if it's not densely packed. Whereas we can look at empire, and we can see what empire did in the slave trade. We can see the evidence of that, but that's not taught. We know about Henry VIII's wives, you know. So is it a surprise where we can visibly see, wait, hold on, why are these people who look like these people over there, and we're not told how these people magically ended up from one place of the world to the other? We can see that. So air pollution, where it's nitrogen dioxide and all these other different chemicals, of course they're not going to teach us that, you know. So yes, that's in a plan or something like that. But if you make enough noise about something, then they will start to pay attention.
That's right. I think Sadiq Khan, I think there's a £2 charge coming for anybody who drives in areas that are polluted. I think that's coming this year. I think October, November, I'm not sure.
I mean, to be fair to Sadiq, they brought in the congestion charge, he's added the ULEZ charge, and he's adding this other £2. But I think what I found interesting with Sadiq's question is whether there is a deeper, and I guess you alluded to it, is that there is a deeper motivation, whether it's through subsidies, through diesel or whatever it is, for people for this not to be on the top of the agenda, right? And like you said, if they're not leading, right, who are they following, right?
So let's just put this bluntly, where you want to see the way it comes. And with environment, it's going to get tougher, because all these oil companies, you look at your cost of living right now, it's mad. You look at your energy prices and you're like, this is crazy. How? When we've got the technology, we've got the wind, you can have onshore wind. People say, the wind turbines look messy. Have you seen the electricity pylon? That doesn't look nice. You know, that's everywhere. So that's just a ridiculous argument. But as Britain as an island, there's onshore wind. You can have these things, and then you don't have to worry about the oil prices and everything else. We can't afford it. It's just as simple as that. We can't afford the oil.
It's not economic. It doesn't make economic sense anymore. So why are we still pushing
and poisoning us? And then it's the thing where you want to see what are people's credentials. When you look at this whole Ukraine business and you look at Russia, and then you're like, oh, that's bad because they're bombing. You know, they're bombing Ukraine, and you're seeing that. But then you look with some European countries and they're like, well, why aren't they, cutting off all the money to Russia? Oh, because they're still buying oil and gas, which is causing this air pollution. So it's making us unsafe. You know, all of this stuff makes us unsafe. And then it's like, okay, well, we run from Russia, and then the guy Boris Johnson then goes to Saudi Arabia. And it's just like, well, why don't we spend time and talk about jobs and everything else? Why don't we spend time, forget all of that business? Why don't you spend time saying, look, let's try and get some wind turbines where the technology is here or something. Train up local people so you can go on a mass building thing. You can get employment here. You can give skills. Then you can be a leader in this technology. Why aren't we doing that instead of following some old like colonialist resource scramble for
So you're saying people are getting paid. You're saying people are getting paid. It feels to me as though that's what you're alluding to. You're alluding to the
money.
fact
Yeah,
that
people are getting money off of this.
Right.
But then the problem is, just look at the cost of living. The wildest thing in the UK compared to other places, you look at France. When the petrol went too high in France, they blocked the roads. Where's the petrol? I just went down past an Esso. £1.88. I saw it 2 days ago. £1.82 for petrol. It's just like, this is unsustainable. So people are getting paid, but who is getting paid? If it's not you, then why are you riding for this fossil fuel economy, which is then creating the air pollution? But in Britain, no one's like, everyone just sits down and just be like, and you're just like, whoa, this is wild. But it will come to a stage where it's unsustainable, and you need a different way, you know, especially if it's got the health consequences behind it. So there will be a tipping point, but it would just be nicer for. We don't want to see more young people suffer and more young people have asthma in primary school. You know, we don't want to see more people struggling to just have a normal quality of life. You know, we need to do something.
Can I quote Ella's mother, Rosamond? It's a very simple quote. She said, all children have the right to breathe clean air. All children have the right to clean air. And why don't they?
I feel like one thing we haven't talked about, and just as you're saying that, Cece, what's coming to mind is what is actually, like, I know 4,000 people are dying, and we've talked about this particular individual. Maybe speak to some of the, like, any of the issues. How is it affecting us directly, right? Like you talked about asthma, like clearly, like whatever it is that you, from a health perspective, how does it affect our bodies, or how many people, like anything that you guys have learned from the impact of this terrible air that we're breathing on us.
I've learned that as someone who is probably labelled a single mum, my daughter just finished school last week, forever, she's free. But that's how many years of school? 11 years? I don't drive. And I've walked to school. We've walked to school and walked back, and I'm very careful about the type of traveling that we do, holidays, all of these things, you know. Sometimes we have sandwiches for dinner, and I'm very, very cautious about how I contribute to the environment. This is before I even knew about air pollution. So when you say, how does it affect me? When I think about it, our breathing has changed over the years. I never know why. And you always have this like fear, like, I wonder, am I getting asthma? What's happening to me? I've never, ever investigated it until I was in touch with Sega's song. And I realized, wow, I'm actually being affected by this. Is that what's happened to me? Because my background, my mum was born in 1934, you know, and she died at 81, but she was so healthy. We don't have asthma in the family. We don't have any breathing difficulties going way back. My father's side, my mum's side. But I know I have it. My daughter has it. And now this has to be investigated. So when you say, how does it affect me? I don't know scientifically or medically, but you can even, you know, you cover your mouth when you walk down the street. You know, I would always avoid Old Kent Road. Yep. I'm just adjacent to that, but I avoid it because it's suffocating. Yep. So I know. Yep. And you know, when you go on holiday and you go to the beach, you go to Camber Sands or Brighton, you breathe in that fresh air.
Right? That is clear.
You're free. So I know it's affecting me, but it is that kind of thing, like you don't want to know too much, because as a skater, as a roller skater, you think that you're in the best place. You're in the park, you know, you got all your trees and nature. It's so beautiful. It's actually a form of escapism, and it helps with your mental well-being. So then to know that you're breathing in this air, but are we really breathing in good air? Like, is it sitting onto the pollen? Is all this pollution sitting onto the pollen and breathing in? It's horrible to think that way, but that's the reality, isn't it?
And my personal experience from that is I lived in Brixton for pretty much 15 years, and I moved from Brixton to Norbury 3 months before lockdown. And the second day I came out my house, and I came out my bedroom and I was looking outside, I looked up, and it's the first time I saw stars in this country.
That's rare.
The first time, like I looked up and I couldn't count the number of stars.
Was that during lockdown?
This was in March during lockdown. So not only was the air cleaner, but actually I still see stars now. I mean, I see stars in my house all the time. But when I come to Brixton, never in my life have I looked up in Brixton and seen stars.
In the 80s you could.
Right.
But since...
Right, but that's when I realised that these cars are literally blocking the freaking... view to the stars, and clearly something is in the air, right? So I get that, and I think that made me realize why, hey, so many people, it's not just about schools. Why you move out to the suburbs, you literally feel better when you walk in cleaner air.
It's suffocating in the city, and I would say that we all breathe differently in lockdown, even though we had masks on and we were kind of covering our faces. As in my experience, because we were allowed legally to exercise unlimited, I definitely breathed so much differently, and it was just beautiful, actually.
Interesting. Yeah. Also, it can be another way. Like you look at Amsterdam, and you see how they're all cycling there, and that's because in the I'm not sure whether it was before the 70s anyway. It was as congested as it is now, and they got narrower streets than we have. But then they were like, look, let's make it easier for people to cycle. And when you look at this stuff, it's kind of interesting. One reason I like this is I do think we should try and make things better for future generations. And especially like now, it's affecting us now. We should actually do that and try and make some improvements. So that's one big driver, but also it's a positive thing where you're saying, look, this is positive for everybody. Yes, I'm coming from it from my black perspective, but it will affect everybody in a positive way, and we can do things, and it's quite nice because what's funny is, yes, we're affected by all of these different things. When Black Lives Matter, when that came along, it just highlighted to other people, it just showed other people, this is what we've been seeing all along, and we now no longer have to explain it twice as much. So you see all of these other things, but a lot of this stuff, it was tiring. It was tiring when people were like, oh, police brutality. Like I was 7 or 6. I was 7 or 6 when Stephen Lawrence was murdered, So when you have that, and that was the first time my dad told me, oh, you're black, Whereas before you're just exactly. And you're just a 6-year-old kid going to reception and stuff like that. So, having grown up with all this stuff, it is tiring, it is annoying. Whereas with this, and I don't know the solution to that. I genuinely don't know the solution to some of these inequalities. Nick's in music, and he knows with 696 police shutting down certain events just because it's black people being involved in that. I don't know the solution to
right. So let's talk about the solution to this then.
Yeah, whereas with this.
This is my last question. Yeah. I want to ask you guys, what can we all do about this? What is the smallest thing that we can all practically walk away and do about clean air in London and in our communities?
I would say probably the immediate thing that we could all do is just educate ourselves a little bit, whether that's just a Google, do a bit of research, just kind of understand. And then that could take you to a different level of, you might want to chase up your local council. I feel like in the social media era, making noise ultimately kind of equals disruption or whatever. I think as you kind of touched on before, there is a bit of a capitalist agenda to have the inner city communities work as sort of like the heartbeat of making more money. And so without them being able to travel around and move around, there is an investment, I would say, in keeping that as it is. And so the people who have houses in leafy suburbs and out in the sticks, they're not invested in making that change. So I think it is kind of, whilst it's tiring for all of us in the inner city, we do have sort of we owe it to ourselves to kind of try and fix this silent problem that's not of our making. So yeah, I'd say education first, and then if you have a skill or something else that you can attach to it, which was kind of what Live and Breathe was about, I would say to do that, that's the easiest and most natural way.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Cece?
In my head, I've got a list.
Go for it.
So randomly, as a mother, godmother, neighbour, talk to children. Children are sponges and they need to know the truth. I'm always honest with children. Tell them the truth. Yes, it is scary. So is the boogeyman. So is walking across the road, but yeah, it is scary. But, they are the next generation, and they are so creative, and they can think of the most easiest solutions to things, you know? Give them a chance, because they are the future, right? Also, remembering about indoors. Turn off those plug diffusers, man. Get an air diffuser, put some, natural oils in instead. Seriously, like, your home is your environment. Protect your home. And also, the other day, my daughter and I, we made some T-shirts in remembrance of Ella Kissy Deborah. Wear T-shirts, wear the merchandise that you get at these events and stuff like that. And also social media, guys, like, that is a power tool. TikTok, Instagram, WhatsApp, share it. Share this podcast link today. Share it. Some people will bypass it and some won't. And stand on the necks of local authority. When those councillors come round saying they want your next vote, say, well, what are you doing about air pollution? Come back and tell me and I'll think about it. You know what I mean? There's so much that we can do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. So with Live and Breathe, what we did is there's awareness, but there was an open letter as well where you can write to councillors, because yes, the big government, it can seem, that's stuck for 5 years. But as Cece was saying, local government, local councillors, they're the ones who are in charge of the roads. They're the ones in charge of things, not just the bins. So they can actually make a change if you put pressure on them. And they are making changes because, like, for instance, which we haven't talked about, but the low traffic neighborhoods where they stopped, where they put potted plants and some other things. In some place they put cameras. So with stuff like that where it was rushed out before consultation. So the thing was to help air pollution, but it was done before consultation. But then you could see that something could be done. So similarly, it's a thing where they do have the power to put those in and to do these if you make noise about it. And there are certain, so what I would say is if there are campaigns going on, like you're saying with social media, sometimes all you need to do is, not saying to everyone go and be an activist, but sometimes just give support to the people who are being the activists. So for myself, when I started this, there's a group called Choked Up, who are some inspiring young ladies from around this area, and they've been campaigning for about 5 years. Angeli, in fact, was one of Ella's schoolmates, and now they're just sitting their A-levels. They've been campaigning whilst they're at school. So it's the sort of thing where let's not just leave it to the kids. Like, you can be like, why do I care? It's like, well, the young people, they're doing it. We're looking lazy out here. We're looking ridiculous. So it's to support them. So whenever I do something, I say, yeah, I'm doing this, make some noise. But then I refer people to Choked Up and some other groups. Go and research. We've got media, we've got like Galdem, and we've got other things who are bringing up all great journalism from women of color, bringing up their voices, which is different from the Daily Mail and everything else. So support some of these organizations who are trying to bring these different environmental stories out here. Then my final point is, from a political point of view, you've got this weird thing where politically, these are all sort of Labour areas. Like, you're not going to see Conservatives around here, but then some of the councils, it is tricky because the Conservative government have stopped funding to the local councils. But then I think some of the parties, they might have, the Labour Party, I'll speak specifically, they might have neglected the vote of black people, people of colour, and forgot about what's going on, because it's like, well, I don't need to change the area because these people aren't complaining about air pollution. They're not really doing that. So maybe Rosamond, Ella's mum, ran for a Green Party in the last local election. I voted for her. She didn't get in. But then sometimes, like a protest vote, when you still vote, you can see it will make a change. So ultimately, I think when the country changes from this stupid system, first past the post, to proportional representation, then I think we'll see some other parties come through. And in Europe, the reason why they're ahead is because they have more proportional things. So the green question can't be ignored. The environment can't be ignored. It's on the table. So that's what I'd kind of say. Yeah, just read up and see what's out there and support. There's some great young people doing stuff, and they've been doing it for longer than I've been doing it. But they need our support. It's not for us to sit back, because it's affecting us as well. So whatever stage you are, whether it's my stage or older, the big bosses who are around 60 and whatever, who are in these offices, you got to make sure it's a problem that their kids go home and they complain to the parents and they say, no, we can't. Yes, dad, or mum, you've just bought another house in the south of France. Well, not with Brexit. You just bought a house in Yorkshire or whatever it is, another thing. But that's not good enough because me and my schoolmates are struggling. And we don't want to inherit your ill-gotten goods. So yeah, that's what I'd say.
Thank you. And thank you to all three of you. Before I wrap up though, I just want to check if anybody else has a question before I wrap up, and then we can just drink some more, eat some more, and then talk informally here. Any questions? Yes.
Tested 1, 2, 3. Hello? Hi.
My producers are telling me I'm running out of time. This isn't real TV. I can go as long as I want. Why are you making me feel like
Sorry, just a quick question, because this has been centered around South and it being affecting South. Do you think you probably widen your angle more to get politicians to understand? Because I feel that if it's just one section of London, no one's going to pay attention to it. They would look at it like, oh, someone died in South, that's fine. We'll talk about it later. But if it's like North, East, West, and South are getting the attention or making talks about this or speaking out about this, don't you think they'll get more attention from politicians?
Do you know what? That's a good point, but I'd say it's a dual pronged. You can do either. You do what kind of fits you, and from my personal point of view, I do think there is something powerful in authenticity. So if you spread it too widely, you might be going to too many communities where you don't really know. So yes, it is all London, but do I really know what's happening in Ealing or in Acton or something like that? So it's a sort of thing where before you go too far and it's just awareness, you try and speak to the community and try and do the groundwork where they're like, okay, we understand because you're from down the road, rather than just hopping over somewhere else and then saying you go over there and they'll be like, well, can you gather a crowd in Brixton, in Lewisham, in Deptford? And it's like, oh, no, we've run over here. So I think there is something powerful, especially in this age where people do want to see the local story. And to summarize that video, the first video I made, it ended up going to COP26, the UN conference up in Glasgow, and it was played up there. And it was in a series, Seat at the Table, which is David Attenborough's production company, Silverback Films Studios. They made this thing just talking about, it's on YouTube, episode 3. And Barack Obama, they wanted him, at COP, they asked him to be part of this series as episode 11. And he said, I'm only going to do it if young people are involved and if I can watch the first 3 episodes. Luckily, my episode, or the episode I'm in, was episode 3. So Barack Obama has seen this story of like Lewisham and something like that. So it's a thing where be proud of, don't feel like, oh, I haven't got enough voices or it's not big enough. Just because some small little part, it's not even the whole South Circular, a small little thing. Barack's seen you skate then.
Big up Barack.
So that story is powerful because it's honest. You know, it's honest, and then you can push it out.
And it's not someone, it's Ella Kissy Deborah. She was 9 years old, and she's the first deaf in the United Kingdom recorded. And also, South London doesn't belong to South Londoners. It belongs to Londoners. It belongs to everybody. Even if you want a holiday, some people are doing Airbnb in South London. Some people are working through the commute through to South London to get to North, to get to East, to get to West. My partner lives in South London, but he works in East London, and he skates to work. So don't just think of South London as it's just for South London. It's an area that belongs to everyone.
But you know what's mad actually though? When you look at the numbers though, this small area of Lambeth, Southwark, Lewisham, that's 900,000 people. So if you look in terms of European city, I think it might be in like the top 100 European cities because we're so densely packed in here. So then when you start to translate even to other global cities, this small portion, 900,000 people, is something which can show, look, if we've managed to do this event for this area, we can then translate it to people in other areas. And you forget about that, the power in like the community that you've got. But it's to start small and then to try and to build it out. But it's for other people, they can see what's going on and then tell their stories. Because ideally, we'd like West Londoners to start saying, look, we got a problem here, and to see what we've done and to pass the baton. Yeah. But that's a great question, though, because you do have to think about it. Cool. Are you?
But you're in South today. You're here today.
I understand what you say.
Yeah.
And I get it. But I'm just looking at it from the point of view that if you were bringing this to the politicians, that's what you're going to be thinking about. This person from South is coming with issues from South.
I hear that, but the interesting thing is, just through the art, I did something for Liverpool Light Night. So I went on BBC Radio Merseyside to talk about this project. They don't have that many people in Liverpool. So, but I'm saying I'm bringing this story from my perspective of who I am. But then I said to them, and I said, I'm pretty sure the people in Toxteth are in the same socio-economic conditions, and also in terms of disenfranchisement as the people in South London, in this corner. So, and then they were like, yeah, we get it. We see this. So the whole point here is it's to use our example of this is where I'm coming from. And it's like, I'm fighting for you as well, whether you're in Swansea, whether you're there and you're there. And that's the trick where with divide and conquer, they'll say you haven't got enough people voting for you. But 900,000 is more than a Conservative Party official membership.
Thank you, guys. I think I've gone 15 minutes beyond the time, but I just wanted to thank you all and thank you guys for the questions. Thank you, Love Sesega now.
Oh, Love Sega.
Sesega. It's Love SSEGA and CC. CC, you are at?
CC Roller Skates at CC Roller Skates at
CC
Instagram.
Roller Skates, that's it, right?
YouTube,
on Instagram, cool. And
Shabba Party.
Shabba Party, cool, awesome. Thank you all. Thank you, of course, to Urban on Health. Thank you to Purpose, and thank you Live and Breathe, and obviously Impact Brixton and the IB production team. Thank you, Gareth, Daryl, and Kylie. Go on.
One question: which part of London are you from? Hackney. Oh, okay. Oh, that's basically South.
It's basically South.
South on Sea.
South on Sea.
It's basically South.
No, I love that. Love that.
Thank you. You guys have
Thank
educated
you.
us. I think we've learned a lot of creators here. And I think for me, what I've taken away is that as a creator, we all have a responsibility to have these conversations. We can't look to our community to all care. We have to care and we have to lead that. And I think we've learned a lot from how to support you and how to support ourselves and in doing everything. So please follow them. Thank you for being here. And yes, it's been a wonderful podcast. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.